Yo. The Wicked and the Witless, Chronicles of an Age of Darkness, Volume 5 by Hugh. Fantasy. So people often call fantasy science fiction, sort of. They interlink it a bit, but it's sort of... science fantasy can come along, but really this is the past fantasy, usually, sort of, and it's like Merlin and King Arthur Merlin stories. It's sword and sorcery. Warriors and wizards. It's like the verse following Chronicles of an Age of Darkness, the wizards and warriors. That's what fantasy is mostly about, that sort of stuff. Dungeons and Dragons. Now, there is a Hugh Cook Reddit, Reddit. That's a website where there's a lot of groups. It's a message board fan club sort of system where all sorts of Reddit groups are, and there's a Hugh Cook Reddit group. A bloke called Sylvester, I think, runs, or he's a very popular contributor or something like that. Hugh Cook Reddit, where they talk about the Chronicles of an Age of Darkness primarily, but also Hugh Cook's other stuff, and you see some interesting stuff on Hugh Cook Reddit. There's also my YouTube channels, Hugh Cook Fanfiction, and Adventures in Life with Hugh Cook, and there's a Hugh Cook Fanfiction.angelfire.com website where it's linked to the YouTube channels where I have some of the typed up stuff. There's videos and there's typed up stuff on my Hugh Cook Fanfiction sort of stuff, which is like volumes 11 to 20 in work and sort of my versions of them, if you know what I mean. But this is volume 5, The Wicked and the Witless. This, when I originally read, I do recall it didn't seem to have quite the wit or sarcasm of The Walrus and the Werewolf, Volume 4, which was the big one, which was sort of like dragged and drag and away in his adventures on the Werewolf, I think it was. He was on the Werewolf, I can't remember. They're the two ships anyway, the Walrus and the Werewolf. Walrus was a big fat bloke, wasn't he? It was the name of the ship or something like that. But and John Arabin was the commander of the Werewolf or something like that, to Hugh Cook. But this wasn't quite as sarcastic, though. Volume 6 and Volume 7, The Witchstone of the Wonder Workers and The Wazir and the Witch, they return to heavy sarcasm. But this was, it's got it, believe me, it's Chronicles of an Age of Darkness stuff. Almost like the average in some way, like its size, it's like the average size in some ways. But here's the blurb on the back. As they marched, as they neared Selkirk, regret gave way to excitement. Soon, Sean Kelleby's Saracen, who would one day win himself the name Watashi, would be in the city where he would have at last a chance of real power. Powerful foes would oppose his rise to the role of the Harvest Plains, of the Harvest Plains, but at least he was a guaranteed support from his mother. For surely Farfalla would approve of his ambition once she learnt it. Surely she would not want power to die out of the family with her death. Surely not. In the event, acquiring power proved rather more complicated than Saracen had imagined. His comfortable life as a hostage in the cool and shady city of Voice had left him ill-prepared for a life of a life of war, intrigue, and wizardry. Yet that was what awaited him. The 5th volume in a spectacular fantasy epic. Pretty cool cover. The covers are all spectacular for these Chronicles of an Age of Darkness books. There they are fighting down in these cities on hills, This should, there's the first 4 volumes, of course. And, nothing at the back. There's a map of Argon. This one is indeed set in Argon. And there's some minor maps. We'll read a selection. We'll read from chapter 1. Rice Empire. Argon's most deadly populated nation supports over 1 million souls on land strip roughly 300 leagues long and 100 wide between Ashen Mountains and Central Ocean. Population prejudice relieved by mass marketing of slaves to provincial Endogeneer to the south, and wars were with more lightly populated harvest plains to the north. Capital, Galtraslaven. Ruler, Lord Regan. Language, Celtic. Okay, I'll read out this first couple of paragraphs. In winter in Alliance 4324, Sean Saracen was again wounded in combat. His latest injury began life as a slight scratch which threatened to heal without trace. However, by diligently rubbing it with salt, he won a scar which would mark his face for a lifetime. He was intensely proud when girlfriends cherished his scar with delicate fingers and spoke in hated breath of the horror, the pain, the fear. The elegant Jaluba, who was somewhat more than a girlfriend, also admired it, then made an extremely improper joke about a wound of her own. So it's fantasy, sword and sorcery, warring out on the plains of Argon, and in the world of Olo Malan, the name of Hugh Cook's fantasy world, Olo Malan, set on the continent of Argon. There's about 4 or 5 continents. There's Argon, Tamarin, Perengarenga, and Yestron. They're the main 4 things, and some islands come into play as well, smaller islands. The island of Untanchilamon or something like that. Is that the capital city, or I think that's the name of the island, of the city on the island or something. There you go. That's Chronicles of an Age of Darkness, the Wicked and the Witless. People might have noticed so far that all 10 volumes of the words start with a W and the W. That's something he kept as a thing for all 10 volumes. And for the future volumes, it was planning that as well. One of the examples of the title was Waltrop and the Wasp. And for his website, I think you can still get his websites online, Zenvirus or Hugh Cook websites or something. I think they're possibly still online. You get information on his notes and things like that about future plans, what he had for the future of the Chronicles of an Age of Darkness. Never quite got any of that done. I don't know if that's the exhaustive Hugh Cook notes. He's probably got a stack with his wife, which I think she lives in Japan or something, which the family still probably has a stack of his stuff, I would imagine. Wouldn't really know. I think he had a daughter, did Hugh Cook, as well. He was born in the UK. Let me see. Born in the UK, lived in New Zealand a bit, I've got a video on Hugh Cook, Life of Hugh Cook, SF author. But Cook Islands or something like, not Cook Islands, Kiribati or somewhere, well, it might have been Cook Islands. But he was born in the UK and lived in New Zealand, lived in Japan as well. And this is, of course, published by Corgi, which I'm not sure if Corgi publish much anymore. I just say Corgi there. Corgi publish much anymore. They're now Transworld or something like that. It's an awesome name. But Volume 5, this might be some more people's cup of tea. If you like the Chronicles of the Age of Darkness, witty fantasy novels, if you like Conan the Barbarian, you'd probably like this okay as well, stuff like that. But he's an intelligent enough writer. He's a smart enough writer. It's not stuff for dimwits. It's not stuff for the witless and the wicked. Yeah.